Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. This week we're going to look at a plugin called Bark of Dog from Boz Digital. Okay, so what this plugin is a bass resonance filter. So Boz claimed that this is a great way to increase your low end without creating flub or mud or anything like that. So they state it's simple, but it's increasing bass with control. So you've obviously got a meter here. You've got 3 controls here. Pretty simple. We've got an amplitude, which is basically gain. So how much we're going to boost. The frequency, what frequency we're going to boost, and the mix. So we can obviously do 100% mix, or we can wind it down. So we can go from 0, which is basically doing nothing, to blending in a bit, 100%. Frequencies we can target, we can go from all the way to from 10 hertz up to 2K. So default starts you off at 80 or around there. And amplitude, we've got 0.71 up to 10. So we just reset that to default and we'll bypass it. So let's start with a kick drum and see what we can do with that. So we've got a simple kick here. So instantly we've got some impact there. Now what we might want to do in this case here, because I've got a little display here of the frequencies, we might want to work out the fundamental of the kick and set our frequency to that to boost that frequency. So let's play the kick and see if we can locate the fundamental. Now the fundamental is obviously going to be the loudest part or the peak of this kick. Now, you might not necessarily like that note. You might want to target something else to boost a different part. But if you want to keep the natural sound of this kick, then you're going to want to target what its fundamental is from the recording. So we're sitting about somewhere here, which is about 75 hertz roughly, give or take. It's, between this range here, but that's the very peak there. So it's about 75 hertz. So we can put that to about there. So we can get very extreme there. We can adjust this trim here. So we've got our meters here that's showing the in. So the in is the signal that's coming into the plugin, and the out is obviously what's coming out. So if you want to keep the level comparative, but have this boost in here, then what you do is you adjust your trim so that the in and out is pretty much the same level. And adjusting that trim, what that allows you to do is it allows you to be able to bypass and unbypass the plugin so that you're hearing the real effect the plugin is having and not hearing an increase in volume. Okay, because if you hear an increase in volume, you're always going to prefer that sound over the original. But when you level them, you might find that that's not actually the case, and you might not like what you've done. So in the case of this one here, you've got a kick that's sort of sounding a little bit clicky, and then suddenly we've got this boomy kick, which we might not like, which we would say then, okay, what we've done is not what we should do. Now you might want to take it down, even though the fundamental was sort of originally sitting at 75, we might want to say, okay, that's great, it sounds good, but we're missing some real low-end sub-thump that really is going to hit you in the chest, or when you're in a club, it's really going to rumble that floor, and thump you. So you might want to bring the frequencies down, 45 or 40 to get that real sub-thump in there. Now, if you're listening on small speakers or something like that, you may not hear this, but if you had a subwoofer going, then that could really be a great impact right now. So obviously you could use the mix control as well. So you could blend a little bit of sub in with the natural kick. This would be similar in this case here for a kick drum, especially like having a kick, two different kick mics. It'd be like having a kick in and a kick out. So you could mix them together. So your kick in, the clicky kick might be your most prominent kick. And then you blend in a little bit of this low thumpy sound here. So that's what you could use the mix control for. So let's check out what it sounds like on a bass guitar. So we've got a bass here, sitting around this range here, around 100, 150. So in this case here, if you want to make that bass a lot more low-endy, because maybe you're thinking it's a bit thin, let's give it a little bit more low-end thump here. We've got it set at 80 Hertz. Let's bring the trim down. So when we've done that, so if I bring the frequency up, it actually thins it out. So this is what they mean by it's a resonant filter. So what it's actually doing is it's basically doing an approach like it's sort of doing an approach like this. This is sort of a resonant filter in a way, except this is a shelf, not a filter. But imagine that's being a filter like there. So what it's doing is, based on this setting here, it's putting a little bit of a boost here at 675, and it's filtering below that. So that's why it's sounding thinner, but it's also giving a bit of a prominent sound to that. So with this bass here, like for instance, you want to have it low there. If you set it to 80, it's going to do a bit of a boost at 80, and it's going to filter out lower than that. So it's going to get rid of the low end rumble, but give you a boost around that 80 Hertz there. So that's what this is doing. So that's why they're saying it's giving you control, because it's boosting bass frequencies, but it's controlling it by filtering out the lower frequencies. And again, you can use the mix control to mix it in. So if we were to go back to that setting, or even more extreme, so in this case here, we could use this to actually enhance the finger noise or the pick noise of the bass guitar and get that clicky sound. So if we've got a bit of a dull bass, let's just get our levels right there. So what we're doing is we're enhancing the top end of the bass here, but because we're keeping the mix down, we're not wiping out all of the low end. We're actually keeping the low end signal from the original source, but also blending in a little bit of this filtered, clickier sound. So you can, as you can see, even though this is a very simple plugin, it can be used in many different ways to do many different functions here, especially with this mix control and these settings. And because it's so simple to use, it's something that actually I think even myself, I'm quite impressed with this, that I'll probably use quite a bit because it is such a simple approach to using it. So you could obviously use this plugin on any instrumentation, anything that needs that sort of effect. Like I said, you're not limited to low end either. You can do that top end there with a filter. Obviously, you'd have to use the mix control because otherwise you're going to basically wipe out all of your low end. This is a free plugin, so definitely worth checking out and grabbing. Very simple to use, so why not? So go and check this out. Links down below. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.